Gentlemen, not on? Oh, it's not on? Are we on? Nope. What happened?
Oh, there it goes. Okay. Just took a second to warm up there. Yes. Gentlemen from the Mount Olive Baptist Church, thank you. Gosh, that is wonderful. Absolutely inspired. Today we're here to talk about a change that begins in each of us, a change that we pray to be infectious across this community and across this land, a change that calls for healing. I find myself humbled and honored to have been asked to speak to you today. I wish I was one who had all the answers and all the great wisdom, and I come as one of you, frustrated. I've seen the news. I've heard the remarks. I listened just today on NPR about a very rancorous debate that took place in Boston, and the hostility was infuriating. And yet I still feel compelled to do something, to act out of the depths of my Christian faith, to speak out of the strength of a patriotic priority that burns deep within my soul, to speak out of a constitutional commitment to the values that I believe, and I think most of us believe, are essential to the strength and the vitality and the diversity that makes this nation great. Yes. Today we are here to focus on our fundamental freedoms that we value so much, and that in today's modern discourse seem to be getting trumped in ways that are, quite frankly, dangerous. For we do live in tumultuous times where there is a lot of dissension and disagreement, yet I still believe that we are called to live according to the promises set forth in our founding documents for the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. I am reminded, though, of another time in our nation's history, also a time of great economic distress and upheaval. A time when there was a lot of uncertainty as to how to progress forward and how to coalesce together as a nation. And in the midst of this tumultuous and difficult time, the nation elected a new president who, upon coming to office and delivering his first inaugural address, decided to rise above the destructive and the devastating powers that were eating at the heart of the nation at the time, decided to speak to the disillusionment that it may no longer override the discernment that calls for civil discourse. He chose to take a time when discrimination would no longer become the means for dissent, and that hate-driven dispute would no longer trump over legitimate disagreement. And in his inaugural address, he said these words, which we all know: "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." That nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance. I'm speaking of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the president that helped lead this nation out of the worst depression our history has ever known. A president that boldly led this nation through times of peace and times of war. A president that helped hold this nation together when many would have said it couldn't happen. Today, we are living in a time of fear. F-E-A-R, fear, false evidence appearing real. That's fear. It's false evidence appearing real. It's false because it's not true. It's false because it's grounded in lies. It's false because it is not legitimate, but it appears real because it sounds real, because it's presented real, because it's broadcast on the news as real, because it's heard as real, and it impacts us as real, but it only appears that way. But it's that kind of fear. It's that kind of false evidence that appears real that drives hatred, that fuels extremist groups. Think of the Ku Klux Klan, Al-Qaeda, neo-Nazis, or the so-called Christian patriots, and how fear is the fuel that drives their energy. It's what motivates charismatic speakers to motivate others with rancorous mayhem and with the reactionary rhetoric that destroys communities and divides people, and the exasperating extremisms that makes everything seem like absolute opposites. It's got to be black or white. It's got to be right or wrong. It's got to be up or down. It's got to be left or right. It's got to be gay or straight. And there's no in between. And there's no opportunity for dialogue because everything has already been preordained in the minds of those who live by hate. And today, we stand in the midst of this and we say there is an opportunity for respect in the political discourse. There is an opportunity to respect and uphold the human dignity in one another. Speaking purely out of the Christian and the Jewish foundation, we understand that all of us were created in the image of God and called good. And that doesn't define what our political beliefs may be. It says simply, we are created in God's image and called good. Therefore, we deserve the respect. They deserve the respect as humans. We all deserve the respect instead of the emotionally driven reaction. I'm not saying we have to walk in some sort of lockstep agreement and pretend like we all get along. There is room for differing ideas. Last I checked, the United States is still a country of great diversity, and that is beautiful. Many of you have heard me say before, God would have never created us with such beautiful diversity, to expect us to experience the divine in only one way, or to live our lives only under one set of rules. There is room for diversity. So in the midst of this fear, in the midst of all of the emotionally charged rhetoric, in the midst of all of those that would stand up on their podiums and tell other people how fast they are going to a very hot place, we can, as I like to say, go to the bar. And the bar is simply to breathe, relax, and respond. When we react to fear, we react out of fear. We react in fear. But when we take the time to breathe, when we take the time to relax, when we take the time to take in the whole situation, we have the opportunity to respond not in fear, but in love. The most important thing to remember is that there is a time to say, I do not agree with this rhetoric, with this opinion,